Today I'm sitting down with Lyle Swithenbank, Pelicans legend, former host of the Sports Ethos Pelicans podcast. Let's go balls deep.
I could bet all of the riches that I ever had.
Welcome to another episode of the Balls Deep Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by FBI Basketball. I'm Adam King, your host. At AdamKing91 on Twitter is where you can find me. FBIBasketball.com is the website. Head over there, check out all of these shows, all of Matt Lawson's Dynasty stuff that he's got going on, WNBA fantasy rankings. He does way too much work. I don't know how he does it all. As I said today, joined by Lyle Swithenbank, fellow Australian, which is nice. I think, who have I had? Matt Smith and Mitch Casey. So I think the third Australian, and Josh, of course, Josh Lloyd. So the fourth Australian I ever had on the show. Lyle, how are you?
Good. Thanks for having me. To join names such as that, I'm honoured. I'm honoured. Thanks. Yeah, no, it's great to chat.
Yeah, look, so this one came about pretty quick, actually. I only messaged you today and then happened to be working from home. You're working from home, as many of us are doing nowadays, and had some spare time. So I, unlike everyone else, I haven't even forwarded you the questions that I'm going to be asking. So this is really winging it.
Let's go freestyle.
We will. So I guess before we jump in, as I said, you were hosting the Pelicans podcast over at Sports Ethos. No longer there, but you do have some future plans for Pelicans related content. Can you give us any, by the time this releases, you may have already made some announcements, but can you give us any idea as to what is coming up in the next, I guess for next season?
Yeah, well, I was with Sports Ethos, as you said, for a number of years, and then decided, probably by the time this comes out, it'll be out there. But I'll be heading out on my own and starting my own podcast, I guess, and there'll be a few offshoots of that, and so there'll probably be a chain of them that'll come out in quick succession. But looking forward to firing that up. There'll be more details, I suppose, as it all develops. But really excited to sort of just have a crack by myself. It could be boom or bust, but got to be in it to win it.
Well, that's right. And look, I think, anyone that's listened to your show knows that sort of everything there is to know about the Pelicans. So it's not like there's plenty of content there inside your head. So it's how it comes out that'll be up to you. Looking forward to the new show. So we sort of lead off these shows usually by just talking about your journey. Now the people I have been speaking with are specifically fantasy analysts, or some of them do some gambling stuff as well. Whereas you're more of obviously a Pelicans, a team focused kind of content. I know you do dabble in fantasy as well. But in terms of getting, I suppose, to where you are, a Pelicans analyst, I suppose. What's been your journey to get there?
So I actually started in the fantasy space. So it started back at Sports Ethos doing some of their premium fantasy analyst stuff that they were putting out, and that was many a year ago now. I think it might have been pre-COVID for those playing along, but
so it would have been hoop ball back then.
Yes, it was. Yeah, with hoop ball. Yeah,
yep.
So with hoop ball, and so started on the show, their Thursday show, and that was good fun. And then sort of expanded. We had an iteration that was on Facebook Live called Saturday Night Lyle that ran for a few weeks, but months I think it was by the end of it, half a season, and then. Yeah, sort of took up the opportunity to move into the team coverage side of things. They had an opening in the Pelicans podcast. The previous hosts had given it up, and they had a vacancy. So I took that up, and wasn't a huge Pelicans fan, honestly, to be completely honest. I followed the team, but was never, emotionally invested, that perhaps I am a little bit too much now. And I took that over in the start of 2020, which, as you can imagine, was a pretty average time to take over a team coverage, a podcast, particularly because there was no basketball on. So I think it was the start of April. I took it over in 2020, and from there, just sort of went back and learned about the history of New Orleans, learned about the history of basketball in New Orleans, which is it's a really rich history, dating way back before even the New Orleans Jazz. We've had teams like the Buccaneers and through all different leagues that are now defunct and throughout history. But learning about that and also getting to connect with the people of New Orleans, probably more as a I suppose as a community side of things rather than just a basketball side of things has been really rewarding. And to have now, to be a part of a fan base now and, covering a team with a pretty exciting future, I think, if we can just stay healthy. That's the big asterisk. That's been really fantastic. And to have that opportunity to be able to cover that team and get ingrained in the community now, particularly from Perth rather than in the States, that's been really... I've been pretty blessed, I suppose. It's been pretty awesome to be part of that community, and no doubt we're looking forward to next season already.
Yeah, and it is. I obviously follow a lot of fan bases, and you have to when you do fantasy because you have to sort of have a foot in the door of every team.
Sure.
But the Pelicans fans are quite vocal.
Yeah, indeed.
which I've seen and quite and very passionate. And I think this season was probably a season. I mean, I'm not in depth as you, obviously, but I can imagine that there was a lot of frustration this season with how everything unfolded and where they were sitting. I think 1st of January, they were number 1 in the West. And then,
when I was there.
And then, as we know, they did not finish number 1 in the West. Yeah, I mean, we tend not to do too much basketball talk, but I want to because I've got you on here and you know about the Pelicans. So I guess looking ahead, the question anyone, whether they follow the Pelicans or not, is Zion. And,
of course.
And whether he can get healthy, whether he can stay healthy, is his, I guess he's, the question a lot of people ask is to do with his build and how sustainable is his production in relation to his physical, his size and the way he plays the game and that sort of thing. I guess, what are your thoughts looking ahead to next season on Zion and the Pelicans?
Look, he came into this season in the best shape he's ever been in. He was pretty well publicised that, with the year that he had before with the broken foot, which just refused to heal, and it's pretty common with those sorts of injuries that he had with the stress fracture in the pinky toe. He came back in and just looked magnificent from what I've been told. And took a little bit to get going. I think the first maybe 5-6 games he was pretty a bit up and down. He's scoring about 20 odd points, just trying to get his rhythm back. And then probably that tear through November, December, he just went absolutely ballistic. He was, after he got knocked out the air, landed on his tailbone, was out for a couple of, maybe a week or so, 2 weeks, came back. And I was fortunate enough to be there in New Orleans when he was playing. Mm-hmm. And he is just a different type of person. He is built different and completely unique, like you said. The issue is that everyone's saying is like, well, can he stay healthy? I mean, he's 6'6". I don't know what that with his they said he's 300 pounds. When I was watching him, he wasn't that. I don't know how much that is in kilos, but he's a big fella. But at the same time, I think the TV, particularly when I've watched him, he looks like a bigger guy, but at the same time, when you see him in person, he just looks shredded. Like he's just a massive guy, but he doesn't look fat at all. I think it's hard because the amount of contact that his game style, attracts makes it really difficult to stay healthy. The normal wear and tear of a 82 game season, which we're yet to see him play, it's going to take the toll on him. And particularly because he's so good at scoring around the basket, you just naturally just get belted every single time you attack the basket. And without that sustainable sort of jump shot, which we're still waiting to see, started to do a few of the little like midi fades, and he can shoot the three a bit. Until that becomes more of a staple in his arsenal going forward, he's going to continue to get punished. And I think that's the big thing, is that his body wears down, and with his second jump, the refs don't reward him quite as much as some of the other big names that will throw the head back or stick the arms out and get the arm chopped, because he still manages to finish the bucket. What I want to see from him is, well, it's cost him all NBA this year, so that's cost him about $40 million in his contract, which is nothing to poke a stick at, to say the least. Hopefully that puts a bit of fire into him to really come back again and say, I need to play a minimum, 65, 70 games, which I think is pretty standard across the board now for the top level players. When we had 29 from him this year, it's just not enough. So, and when he is playing, you're number one in the West, and then all of a sudden he's out, you drop 10 in a row, and we're on the outside looking in, and comes down to the last game of the season to get into the, 7th seed, or 6th seed, 8th seed, pardon me. Yeah. Instead, you've got to go through the play-in, and the rest is history. For me, it's a mentality thing. He has all the talent, all the skill, all the support, everything is around him. The Pelicans are all in on him. They gave him that 5-year deal. But I think, reading between the lines, based on our exit interviews and things like that from the other players, they weren't as convinced with his professionalism going forward after the second hamstring injury. I think that really knocked his confidence, and perhaps didn't take it quite as seriously. Of course, this is all conjecture and, reading between the lines and things like that. And there's no actual reports on that. But, you want to see that. He's a young guy, he's 22. Been given 194 odd million. Nothing, not bad at all for a guy that's played maybe a season and a half total so far. But it is going to be a mindset change and a mentality change, and he's got to dig in and say, and I suppose prove to the league that he wants this. Because if he plays and he is sustainable and can play 65 games and turns into Joel Embiid like, force. And, there's always those mirrors between those two guys because of the way Joel Embiid's career started. The Pelicans are going to be at the top of the West. They absolutely are with this guy. And we go as he goes. And you could see as soon as he went out, with no Brandon Ingram, as he was still coming back from a foot injury, we had no chance. And you're playing guys that wouldn't get a game on other teams. And they were playing 35, 40 minutes a night. So it made it pretty difficult. And so what I want to see from him is get fit, come back, and get hungry. You've cost yourself $40 million. You might as well earn the rest of it now. So that's the main sort of takeaways from that.
Yeah, and I think it's, as you said, I mean, you read what you read, and you get on social media and you hear that the players are doubting his commitment and he's all of that. And I mean, that's to be expected given the way the season ended. But I think if you watch, as you said, that period through November and December when they were flying high and they were winning, they all looked engaged. Like there was no sort of, there was none of that feeling of, hey, we don't trust him it's not like we doubt him here. He's giving his all. So I think, all he's really got to do is be healthy. And as you said, standard now is 65 games. So even if you were to get 60 out of him, I think that would be more than enough. Players just, outside of a few, players just don't play more than 65, 70 games. So 60 would be fine. So we'll see. We'll see how they go next season. So as you said, you started in fantasy and now you're about to go and do sort of your own thing with the Pelicans, but we lined this up based on you being in meetings. So you obviously have another job. So outside of the sporting realm, the fantasy and the real life basketball realm, what is it that you do to fill your day?
So I work as a lawyer in a private company. So I been doing that for 7 years. So so that takes up most of my time. But obviously, with the pandemic changing how we work now, it's not really a days long grind in the office anymore. We can work from home. We have that flexibility. If your work's done, that's the goal. People are all working towards the same thing, to really be able to work flexibly and respect each other's private time and things like that, which I think has been a really nice shift, particularly in an industry that is traditionally churn and burn, and especially with young lawyers coming through, it's a nice change, and it means that more people are staying in the legal industry rather than, I suppose, traditionally where you either just accepted that this was your reality and that you grinded the big hours, or you left it and went and did something else. So it's a fun job, and I enjoy what I do. I don't know if I can speak for every lawyer that does, but for me, I enjoy what I do. And then basketball is, I suppose, and the creative side with podcasting and things like that, sort of my outlet. That's my hobby, and I just do that for fun. But
I can fully relate to that. It's much the same here. Full-time job, and then the basketball and that sort of thing is a hobby that's really gone too far. That's sort of what it is for a lot of analysts. It tends to take over their lives, and I guess on that, for me, my family's great. They're flexible. For you, like I've got almost 2 teenage kids now. You have a family, you have kids. What does your sort of life look like when you're not working at all?
So for me, it's me and Lark, who has featured heavily on the Twitter throughout the journey, particularly in our little journey around the US recently. But so it's just us two, and she also works flexibly, so she has the opportunity to be in the office but also work from home. So for us, we have a lifestyle that really suits, I suppose, especially operating out of the US. With these hobbies, you can sort of fandangle different time zones and start early or start later, and that's been really rewarding for both of us to be able to, I suppose, watch basketball, follow the fantasy, be able to get your fantasy team in before the games start, a little bit earlier here in the morning than over East, being 2 hours behind. But besides that, we're pretty cruisy, and that's been she's a big champion of me doing this, and I think she's really involved herself in the Pelicans as well now. I think we don't ever watch games not together, so if one of us is in the office, it's don't you look at the score, we're watching it when we get home. So it's been like that, and it's really rewarding when you have your partner supported in your hobbies as well. It makes it really easy, and you can have conversations that both of you are interested in. So I'm pretty spoiled with that.
Yeah, that is not something I can relate to, because while my wife is very supportive of what I do and she allows me to do it, her interest is zero. So I can't have a conversation with her about sport or anything to do with fantasy. So that is, based on, I guess, analysts I've spoken to, that's somewhat unique, in that your partner is so invested in it as well and happy. And I mean, we, as you alluded to, you went over to New Orleans, 6 months ago, roughly, something like that.
January,
I guess, watching Zion, that sort of thing, obviously there's plenty of highlights there, but in terms of the time you spent in New Orleans, anything other than going to watch the basketball, anything that sticks out as memorable?
Yeah, well, of course, like the Pels, going to watch the Pels live was bucket list stuff. So it was pretty awesome. They took care of us there, and got to meet Dyson Daniels in person, and that was pretty awesome. Go backstage, for want of a better term, after the game and meet him, and that was pretty cool. New Orleans is a really great city, honestly. We spent about 11 days there, which, we went to New York, and then we were there, and then Nashville, and this was sort of the main part of the trip, particularly because of the Pels playing 5 games in a homestand, which was pretty awesome. The World War II Museum there is just fantastic. I would recommend anyone that goes over there go and do that. It's really interactive, and like I'm really into history, so for me, that was right up my alley. The food in New Orleans is spectacular. Like, I mean, I came back a lot heavier than when I went there, and it's just from eating fried chicken basically. But the seafood is really good there. District Donuts is like, just if you go to New Orleans, it's on Magazine Street. Go there. I'll plug them. They're not a sponsor or anything, but they are excellent. The burgers and donuts there are top quality. Magazine Street, I think, is just like one of the best places for shopping. New Orleans, really good for shopping. Heaps of like factory outlets and things. So yeah, you can spend a lot of money there pretty easily. But the weather as well. So we were there in the middle of winter. It was minus 14 in New York over Christmas, and then we went to New Orleans and it was 24 degrees, and I was walking around in t-shirt and shorts. So it was a bit of a shock to the system, but it's really temperate climate for the most part, and the people are so welcoming. It gets a pretty bad rap, I think, for crime and things like that, and that's justified. It's got a lot of different demographics in the city, but I think that's what makes it so unique. It's not like anywhere else in the US, and I think if you're going to the US and want to go and check places out, put New Orleans on the list, because they have a saying down there that if you love New Orleans, they'll love you back, and it is like that. You can walk down the street and everyone's friendly, everyone's having fun, and yeah, I would go back there tomorrow if I could. It's just such a great place.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I hear from anyone that goes there. That it's sort of one of those places you have to go to and you have to experience it. So yeah, looking forward to getting over there later this year.
Excellent.
So again, away from the basketball space. For me, movies, TV are sort of something that I'm pretty passionate about. I watch a lot of TV. I watch a lot of sport, but just movies, TV shows. Anything that I guess you would say favorite movie or movie that you watch a lot, or recent TV series, anything that stands out as memorable in that space as well?
Oh gosh, I just went and saw Air. That was pretty good film about Nike signing Michael Jordan. That was a pretty awesome movie. That's probably the most recent one that I've seen, and that stuck with me. I thought even if you didn't like basketball, that's just a really good film.
Yeah,
I rate that. TV show. What have I recently watched? Well, I hadn't watched House of the Dragon, the Game of Thrones spin-off, so I've only just finished that. Only just started White Lotus as well, so I'm a bit behind on all those shows, but so far enjoying them. What have I been watching? Mostly we watch sport at home, so like free time we watch a lot of that, and then like Farmer Wants a Wife, which is just like excellent television. I'll always watch that. It's just such a wholesome show. All of it.
I'm not going to talk about that show.
So yeah, that's probably what's sticking with me. But that's a look behind the curtain. Otherwise, we're just watching sport. It's basketball. Love the netball as well. Watch a lot of the Suncorp Super Netball. That's Lark's right into it. I'm right into it as well. It's our fever. West Coast Fever is always excellent. So watch a lot of that. NBL right into it as well. So. I know you're into the NBL and into the Wildcats. Pretty one-eyed with that.
They've just recently made a pretty good signing. French guy, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, Alex Sarr. Yeah, the unicorn.
That'll be.
He's going to be all right.
The NBL, actually, I mean, anyone that's I don't know what coverage of the NBL in America. It's probably not even on. I don't know,
no.
But for anyone here in Australia, I think the last, 3 years, 2 years even, the NBL has just come on in leaps and bounds in terms of the coverage, popularity, just basketball. I think in general, the popularity is probably higher than it's been since the mid-90s. Yeah. I know that participation numbers, I mean, I'm in Canberra, you're in Perth, so we're opposite sides of the country, but I know the participation numbers here are really high, and we're really struggling to provide kids with the facilities that they need to I guess, pursue this interest. But the NBL has, like, NBA is obviously number one for me. I love watching the NBA, but I'm pretty sort of committed to watching at least a few NBL games every week now, because it's the exposure's out there, and the talent level is phenomenal compared to what it was 5 years ago.
No,
And
completely agree.
Perth is always up there. Didn't win it. You haven't won for a few years now, I don't think.
No, I was in the arena when I think it was 35 years straight, and the playoffs ended.
Yep.
And Southeast Melbourne Phoenix weren't even had a chance to make the finals, but just wanted to ruin it for us. So it went to overtime, and Bryce Cotton missed on a last second shot, and I've never seen the air go out of an arena as quickly as that. That was devastating. But
look, they're just as a
good.
franchise, as an organisation, they'll be back. Like they're not an organisation that's going to lie down and just sort of say, okay, we're going to rebuild in 7 years. They'll be back this season undoubtedly and competing again. So. And I don't. Well, you've said you like netball. AFL, is that something that you watch? Like, I know it's very big in Western Australia, obviously, and I love AFL. Is that something that you're also you enjoy watching, going to any games?
Yeah, so pretty one-eyed Eagles supporter, which has been the last 2 years without them actually playing has been really difficult. Because they just have not shown up at all.
No.
But it's been pretty difficult to watch. But I've played footy all my life. I grew up in regional WA, so for me it was footy. I only got into basketball probably 16, 17, so it was pretty late to the party. Never really played it until I was I can be a bit less fit to play basketball than I need to be to play footy.
Yes,
and the body seems to like me better playing basketball than footy. But played a lot of footy up until I was about until last year actually, and then so always followed along, always do fantasy AFL, but I'm not really good at it because I just don't pay enough attention. I'm divided between the two sports, but as a casual fan, I love my footy, but I use it more as a social, let's go to the pub to watch the football rather than, die hard sort of, I've got to be at every game and wave the flag and all that sort of stuff. So, I do love my footy. And
good to hear.
You just got to be better at it.
I played when I was young, but haven't played. And again, if you play AFL, you just don't stop. You just run and run and run and run and run. So anyone, America, Australia, if you watched AFL, you know that it's pretty intense for 2 hours straight, 2.5 hours straight, whatever it is. So last question before we leave, and this is a bit of a fantasy one. Looking ahead to next season, we're obviously, when we record this, we're 5 days away from the lottery. So by the time this is out, the draft may have happened. I'm not sure. Victor Wembanyama is a name that obviously everyone's talking about. If you were to look ahead to fantasy leagues next season and thinking about drafts and that sort of thing, where do you sort of envisage yourself being comfortable taking him? And based on hype, based on how much he's going to be talked about, where do you think his ADP will fall? And I know for most analysts, the two don't line up at all.
Great.
But what, I guess for you, where would you be comfortable, or where would you like to be able to get him? Where do you think you will have to reach to get him?
Oh, if I could get him in the hundreds, that would be perfect. But I think it might be wishful thinking. I agree that I think the ADP is going to force him. I think he could get top. I want to be conservative. I think he could make top 30 purely on ADP. Could probably be higher because the hype surrounding this guy, and this is just, I just been in standard redraft. I think people will jump at him and, he's going to be the focal point of whatever team he goes to, which is going to be true. I would be comfortable taking him as a flyer, maybe in the 4th, 5th round, depending how the team's looking. If I've really nailed my first couple of picks, I would take a flyer on him. I think he's going to have a good season. I think he's going to be. I've watched a fair bit of him just throughout the year, because there was a chance at the start of the season that we were going to get the Lakers pick swap, and they were really bad, and so we were hoping we could pair Wemby with Zion. We have a 0.5% chance to get number 1 pick this year. So, if there's a chance, there's a chance. I think that's where I'd be comfortable, maybe even later. I don't draft rookies typically in fantasy, whether they're the top guys or not, unless they're a can't miss, further down the line. But it's a tricky one, but I think his ADP is going to be way higher than that. I think there's, in every league that I play in, someone will go, yeah, I'm taking him, and someone will take him in the top 15. It's just going to be outrageous.
Yeah, I think most analysts are sort of hoping that he'll fall to 3rd round, 4th round. So sort of around 30, 35, something like that. But consensus in terms of his ADP is that it will be much higher than that.
Yeah,
and
agree.
I think, a little bit will depend on summer league and preseason and that sort of thing. So I think his ADP is probably going to open at about 20. I think right out of the bat, I reckon people will take him in the 2nd round. But if he shows out in preseason and just does what we sort of think he might do, then I think by the time peak draft season hits sort of mid-October, it could be, I don't know. I don't think his ADP will be 1st round, but I can almost guarantee that people will reach into the 1st round to get him in some situations. So it's going to be pretty wild. I guess if that is happening in your league, though, you have to sort of look at the positives and say, well, I'm probably not going to get him, but that means players are falling. There's other guys that are locks to be sort of top 15 players who you might be able to get at pick 20 or 25. So it's going to be a very interesting draft season.
For sure.
So we'll see. So, look, that I think that will probably do it. That was a bang on half an hour. That's about what I'm looking at with most analysts. Before I let you go, people can obviously follow you on Twitter, and you'll be tweeting out and promoting whatever your show looks like. And by the time this comes out, you may have started that. So where can people find you on Twitter?
So currently you can find me at Lyle Swithenbank. It's just my name, but with an ad at the front. And that's pretty much the only place that I am at the moment. You can go and listen to old episodes of the Sports Ethos Pelicans, but I did a very emotional wrap up in the last one. If you want to go and listen to a guy cry, no, I didn't cry.
No crying.
But no, not this time. No, that was when Zion got injured. But otherwise, thanks very much for having me. It's been fantastic, and love the show and love all you're doing over at FBI.
Yeah, no, thanks. We're chipping away. We're trying to get more content out. So that will do it for today's show. Remember, you can check out all of that content at fbibasketball.com. Follow us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. Give us a thumbs up. Go and subscribe, like, all of that sort of stuff as we try to build our fan base. Until next time, catch up.
You just listened to another episode from the Fantasy Basketball International Podcast Network. Thanks for joining us. And for more information about joining our community, please check out our website at fbibasketball.com.